Welcome back to Mason Talks. So, yet again, we are here today to talk about a young offensive assistant coach in the National Football League who is being considered by the Cleveland Browns to fill their head coaching vacancy. And today, that individual is Nate Scheelhaase, who is the pass game coordinator for the Los Angeles Rams. Now, much like some of the other individuals who we've talked about this offseason, including Dan Pitcher, obviously Grant Udinski, Nate Scheelhaase is a coach who is still young. He doesn't have as much experience as some of the other bigger names in this coaching cycle. But today I want to talk about some of the reasoning as to why, when it's all said and done, Nate Scheelhaase could very easily become the next head coach of the Cleveland Browns. And before we even get into the whole Los Angeles Rams head coaching factory, I want to talk about Scheelhaase's initial coaching experience, which came at the collegiate ranks. Now, after playing quarterback at Illinois, he was a coach there and an offensive assistant running backs coach for a couple of years before moving on to Iowa State to work under Matt Campbell on the offensive side of the ball. And Scheelhaase was with Iowa State from 2018 through 2023. He started as running backs coach, served some time with the wide receivers as well. And then in 2023, he was the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. Even during his time there, he did, play a little bit of a role in working with Brock Purdy when he was still a member of Iowa State. But I wanted to highlight his collegiate experience first, because when you look at Iowa State, what they've done under Matt Campbell is highly impressive, just in terms of, really improving that university's football culture to, probably the best place it's been in, team history, which is a good part of the reason as to why Matt Campbell is now going to be coaching at Penn State. But Matt Campbell is known, very, very highly regarded as a culture builder. And there was a really interesting article recently that I read by Connor Orr with Sports Illustrated. And he talked about a little bit, not just of that culture building nature at Iowa State, but of the role that Scheelhaase played in that, and the fact that not just from Matt Campbell, but also from, athletic director, from other sources within that Iowa State situation, he really got a first-hand look and was able to play a hands-on role in helping to build some of that culture and offensive identity at Iowa State. And, when you look at the Cleveland Browns, this is probably the number one team in the entire league that could do for some new, fresh culture. And, you may point to other teams such as, the Raiders or whomever. But when you look at the AFC North, the rest of the AFC North, I constantly, in spite of my pure hatred for teams such as the Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers, who, of course, were just knocked out of the playoffs last night. Congratulations to Nick Chubb and the Houston Texans. But when that aside, when you look at these teams, they're never horrific. When was the last time the Ravens were genuinely horrific? When was the last time the Steelers were genuinely horrific? And, the Cleveland Browns have had a lot of bad times in franchise history, especially over the last 30 years. You're talking about just coach after coach after coach who was able to do nothing with this team and were never able to, turn them into consistent winners at all. And when you look at Nate Scheelhaase, I think that at least you're giving yourself the potential to have somebody who could come in here and set a new culture for this team. Kevin Stefanski did a good job in terms of taking a team which, had been 0-16, had been 1-15, and, he really turned the tide around and turned it into a really professional football team, at least for a few years. When all was going well with Baker Mayfield and the talent that those teams had. Kevin Stefanski deserves all the credit in the world for, taking the dumpster fire he was handed and turning it into a competent football team. But I don't think any Browns fan is happy with competency. I think we want to be like the Pittsburgh Steelers. We want to be like the Baltimore Ravens. We want to be perennial winners. We want to have that standard. And, you look at Nate Scheelhaase, and you at least would think that from working under Matt Campbell, this is a guy who has the skills, has the knowledge, the wherewithal to be able to build a program, build a culture, help set up a team for continual success. And then on top of that, because, when you're trying to be a head coach in the NFL, it's clear that college experience is not always the best experience. There's been a lot of coaches who rose through the collegiate ranks and then were horrific in the NFL. And that's likely part of the reason why Scheelhaase eventually ended up going to the Los Angeles Rams. He joined the Rams in 2024. And, if there's one thing the Rams are known for right now, it is the impeccable culture which has been set by Sean McVay. And, the Rams culture is so good that teams trip over themselves every single offseason to get one of their assistants to come and coach their team. And to try to, instill some of that offensive magic in their team. Or even, there have been defensive coordinators like Raheem Morris, Brandon Staley, who've been poached from the Los Angeles Rams in an attempt to, take some of that Sean McVay magic. And, I would say there's good reason to do that, because for some teams it's worked out really well. I mean, Matt LaFleur comes from the Sean McVay coaching tree. Kevin O'Connell, Liam Cohen, even Zach Taylor, which obviously Zach Taylor's not necessarily at a great place in his career right now with the Bengals, but he took the team to a Super Bowl. He took the team to a Super Bowl a few years ago. That's somewhere the Browns have never been ever. You look at the coaches who come from the Sean McVay tree, there's a reason why they get poached every single year. They go to teams and they're able to win football games. Does it always work? No, it doesn't always work. I mean, obviously every coaching tree is going to have some bad apples. But if you're the Cleveland Browns and you're a team that really needs to, have a hard reset or a quick reset, I'll call it a quick reset, not necessarily a hard reset, but you really just need to refresh your team, refresh your culture, get some new solid leadership, some new ideas in that locker room. If you're a Browns team that, just stuff, the magic ran out with Kevin Stefanski, but you still have a lot of talent on defense. You still have some, great young up-and-comers on offense like Harold Fannin and Quinshon Judkins. You could do far worse than, putting in a wager on the Sean McVay coaching tree in terms of a guy like Nate Scheelhaase. And, I know people are going to talk about Chris Shula, which he obviously is going to get plenty of looks as a head coaching candidate. But, I mean, I think young, up-and-coming offensive mind is pretty clearly the way that the Browns are leaning right now. And, you could do a lot worse than taking a bet on Nate Scheelhaase. So, if the Browns were to make this move and hire Scheelhaase to be their next head coach, I would not be upset. He's not my top option right now. If you were making me rank my top options for who could be the next Browns coach. Number one is clearly John Harbaugh, and it's going to be until he's hired elsewhere. Number two, I'd probably put Grant Udinski with the Jaguars. I like I like a lot of what he has been able to do in his career. You know, a lot of the way that his like meteoric rise up the NFL coaching profession is you know, really impressive. But then you get to number three, like I'm looking at Nate Scheelhaase, and you know, I'd rather take a bet on him than, you know, pitcher from the Bengals, or even, you know, Mike McDaniel. I don't know if that would be a better move than, you know, trying to get some of the magic from the Sean McVay coaching tree. You know, I might consider Nate Scheelhaase a top 3 coaching candidate for the Cleveland Browns right now. Like that's how much confidence I have in the Sean McVay coaching tree. So, you know, if Nate Scheelhaase is to end up being the next head coach of the Cleveland Browns, I'm not going to be mad at all. Let me know in the comments, what would you think of that type of hire? He obviously doesn't have any coordinator experience, but, you know, he has a lot of experience working under some pretty good culture-setting coaches, and that's the type of, you know, impact the Cleveland Browns are desperately lacking. Thank you for listening to the Mason Talk Sports Show. Please subscribe, and I will see you in my next episode. Goodbye.